Hi everyone, it's Ash from FPL Hints here with an update to my UCL Fantasy Draft. As always, if you're able to like, share, and subscribe, that will be greatly appreciated. Right then, off the back of my two UCL drafts today, I've had a lot of feedback with respect to how I've constructed those drafts. I think the general gist of that feedback is that I'm basically an FPL manager playing UCL Fantasy, and that there are like a lot of nuances to this season in particular, and also that I've not really factored in a lot of the players flying under the radar. So what I wanted to do was take a step back, and I've got this FDR on the screen that you can see there. Now, the one that I used from Fantasy Football Pundit, and be sure to check out the FDR, put a link in the description below. I had it, so it was set in a way where it was basically teams alphabetically set. So I actually asked them if they were due to sort it by difficulty ratings from easiest to hardest. So what you can see on screen basically is for match days 1 right until match day 8, what the FDR ratings are. So with this, you've got Dortmund, Stuttgart, Barcelona, Celtic, AC Milan, Man City, PSV, and then Aston Villa, followed by Bayern Munich, among the teams who've got, like, I don't even use the word easy, but the easier FDR like combos here, and then go further down, right to the bottom, according to the FDR rankings from Fantasy Football Pundit. Surprisingly, Liverpool are fairly down across the 8 group, league match days, and you've got Sparta Prague, Leipzig, Lille, and PSG. Now, obviously, that's just one reading of it across 8 match days, and you could say that if you want to go for an early wildcard, then this FDR basically may not be as relevant. For example, PSG have Girona at home and PSV at home in 2 of their first 3 games. I was very surprised to see them all the way down there. But then you look further across for PSG, they've got Bayern Munich, Atletico, Man City also on their radar as well, which obviously adds a weighting to their actual FDR rankings. So what I actually asked Fantasy Football Pundit in particular was if I could get an FDR for just the first 4 match days in particular. So have the weighting focused on that. And remarkably, I've been able to get that. And I'm going to use this as the basis of my draft update. So if you can see on screen there, according to the first 4 match days now, Salzburg, Barcelona, Dortmund, Aston Villa, Atalanta, Brest, and Man City have an easier run, as it were, if you just focus on the first 4 games. And then going all the way down, you can see the fixtures get a bit more red block. So Red Star Belgrade, Liverpool once again, Young Boys, AC Milan, Leipzig, and Lille are there, and also Arsenal are in that area as well. So again, I don't want to take this literally to say, that's the teams that are good, that's the teams who are like in a problematic situation, because fixture difficult ratings only take you so far, and also they can become basically outdated fairly easily. And also, a lot of teams are fixture proof, your Real Madrids and your Man Cities as well. But I wanted to use it as a baseline for the players that I am going to bring in with this draft update. And I'll probably do one more draft update before the match day 1 deadline. But I wanted to do this because I recognize that the draft you can see on screen here, that, yeah, this isn't really super balanced. And I was really hung up on that Ferrari front 3. And as good as it is, I can't really sacrifice the entire team based on that. So there will be a significant amount of changes I'm going to make. And I'll also try and like validate those picks as well as I go along. So again, doing a swap analysis of my team, I think that the biggest weakness here, even though I tweaked the defense, it is the defense, very weak. Araujo, Lewis, Beraldo. So there's a lot of like rotation issues here. So I do want to really rejig the defense. There are some midfielders here who look reasonable, but then I want to really like balance midfield as well. So I'll just say it now, like Bernardo, out he goes. Araujo, out he goes already from this draft, and also Beraldo And also, I'm going to get rid of Hakimi as well, because in each of the FDRs, the one which is the 4 match day one, and also the 8 match day one, that it's quite challenging for PSG. So I'm going to get rid of him there as well. And then in addition to that, there will be some more changes. So with Saka, it appears he's got a problematic initial run. Obviously, a very important player for Arsenal. He is fixture proof, but I will get rid of him for this particular draft. And I've got the double up with Barcelona there. And whilst I will have some Barcelona cover because they're reasonable, I'm going to just get rid of Rafinha for now. I'm also going to get rid of Rodri. Not that he's a bad player, and I think I can still justify Rodri as a 5th midfielder in UCL Fantasy because of the ball recoveries metric, and obviously he's got the propensity to score and assist as well. I've had some feedback, a lot of people questioning him. Okay, 7 million, but I think he is actually a very all-round player. So get rid of Lewis, get rid of Acerbi as well, and the goalkeepers as well. So I had Cabell and Trubin. I'm going to get rid of them both as well. So I'm literally ripping up this team here, and you'll see what I'll be in for. So I'm literally left with this like front 4, as it were. So I think Lamine Yamal, he will survive this draft update. Got Mbappe, Kane, and Haaland, and it's for me, it's like I'm really like obsessing over this front 3. I'm literally constructing my entire team off the back of this front 3. But then I thought, you know what? I can't do that, and I really have to rejig it. And it was really hard. I mean, Haaland in great form. We saw the FDR as well for Man City across the 8 match days and the 4 match days. They're ranked fairly highly. So, from my perspective, I want to keep basically Haaland in my draft. Real Madrid, again, I said fixture difficulty ratings. I'm not really literally reading into it, but Real Madrid across 4 matches, they've got Stuttgart, Lille, Dortmund, AC Milan. I think I definitely want Mbappe. And they've got Bayern Munich, who, again, similar ballpark, but then they've got Dynamo Zagreb, Aston Villa, Barcelona, Benfica, slightly trickier. I have to basically drop one of my frontline forwards for this draft update. And unfortunately for me, I'm going to drop Harry Kane. I will get some Bayern Munich cover, but again, I recognize the fact that I need to make a balanced draft. Even if I'm going to wildcard after 3 or 4 match days, it needs to have some sort of longevity in the event that I don't. So, with all of that said, I've got 70.5 million in the bank, and I'm going to look just crack on with this draft update. So, in terms of who I'm going to replace Harry Kane with, first and foremost, it was a bit of a like tough one. Who are you going to pick? And from my perspective, there's one player who I am going to actually just bring his metrics on screen here. There we go. And I want to pronounce his name right. It's Victor Gyökeres, Sweden international. Absolutely sensational form over the past season and a bit, where he joined Sporting, 43 goals in 50 games. And then he's already hit the ground running with Sporting this season, more than a goal a game. And he's already been scoring goals for fun at the international level as well. But what I find remarkable is looking back at his career, he was playing with Coventry City, had a slow start to his career, was at Swansea City, didn't even realise he was even at Brighton as well. And then before that, he was at St. Pauli. So again, like humble origins prior to that. But literally, his career has absolutely jettisoned like over the past 3 years. And I've got no doubt that he will hit the ground running in the Champions League. And with Sporting in particular as well, with their fixtures over 8 match days as well, just bringing it on screen here as well, that they've got Lille, PSV, Sturm Graz in their first 3 matches, but the FDR had them like as a almost not not the worst FTR rating, but fairly tricky because then after that they've got Man City and Arsenal, which brings the weighting down. But I think for me, like I don't want to use the word cheat code, but Gyökeres I think could be a massive cheat code here in UCL Fantasy. So like for me, it's a no nonsense pick. So I'm just going to go to Sporting. And again, I'm just going to flip my screen here. So just go to sporting. There we go. And I'm just going to also like contextualize in terms of like the value as well. There he is, 7.5 million. I think he is their most expensive player. 5% owned in UCL Fantasy at the time of recording. I've got no doubt his ownership will gradually bump up between now and match day 1, but he is basically a differential here. And I couldn't really care less how well Sporting Lisbon do in this new league stage format, but I've got no doubt that whether they win or lose, he will be the focal point of their attack. He'll be scoring their goals, and it'll be crazy not to have him in my squad. And the difference is that I've got a good few million now unlocked between not having Harry Kane and getting him in instead. So that will now allow me to have more balance in my squad. So on to the next player now for my draft. And I'm going to come on to Juventus. Now, with Juventus, they weren't rated high on the FDR. And of course, they've had a mixed history in Europe of late, as we can say as well, especially after Ronaldo left. But one player that has caught my eye is Federico Gatti. So I wanted to get some sort of defensive cover for Juventus. There was another defender they had who was 5.5 million, but I just couldn't really get the funds to get him in. But with Gatti, he's got a bit of goal threat as well. As you can see, he scored, 6 goals in his past 63 games for Juventus over the previous 2 seasons. So for me, I'm just going to bring him on the FDR as well for Juventus in particular. Home to PSV, got Leipzig, Stuttgart, Lille, Aston Villa. I think there's some clean sheet potential in that run, even though this FDR may not necessarily reflect it. So I think that's a fairly no-nonsense pick for me. So flicking back to my defense, and I'm going to actually pick Juventus as the team here as well, because there'll be another player that I'm going to be going to Juventus. Just get it up here. There we go. So just going to sort it by ownership as well, actually, just to see what's happening here. So the goalkeeper, less than 5%. You've got Douglas Luiz. Gatti, look at that, barely 1% owned. And I think because they weren't in the Champions League last season as well, that, again, those players, they seem to have a lower weighting in terms of ownership. So going to go to the goalkeepers again, just hopping and like switching about here with the actual draft itself. I'm going to go straight to the goalkeepers. You saw their goalkeeper there. So Di Gregorio, I think £4.5 million seems quite cheap for me. As you recall, in my previous drafts, I had the 4.5 combination with Trubin and Benitez. But with Juventus, I'm going to have a pairing so that I can basically potentially rotate. Obviously, in UCL Fantasy, you can do a stick and twist with the goalkeepers as well. But I'm going to have a combination whereby I can basically rely on my goalkeepers, not really having to worry about a goalkeeping transfer, as it were, for those first few match days anyway. So the other goalkeeper that I had in mind, I'm going to go to Salzburg. Just get to my screen. There we go. And apply the filters here. Again, Salzburg, you'll see the ownership is fairly low with their players as well. So see, Schlager, he's 5% owned. I'm pretty certain Blaswich is the one who's actually starting matches for the Salzburg, and I'll just confirm that as well. So from my perspective, let me just get it here. There we go. So yes, so for some weird reason, according to UCL Fantasy, the 4 million goalkeepers got the higher percentage, but we can see that the start of this season has been Blaswich. Obviously, he was a regular starter for Leipzig as well. So for me, that's a no-nonsense goalkeeping pick there. So in he comes. Now, crucially, the other reason why I've also bought him, just confirm it here, his first match is on the 18th of September, and Di Gregorio's first match is on the 17th of September. So obviously, if I stuck with this draft or this goalkeeper combination, start with Di Gregorio and then potentially switch and get Blaswich in. But crucially, with that combination as well, if I just bring the FDR up as well for these goalkeepers. So Salzburg have Sparta Prague, Brest, Dynamo Zagreb, and Feyenoord in the first four, and Juventus have PSV, Leipzig, Stuttgart, Lille. So in that first four, I could literally have a very good chance in terms of switching them about between match days, but like there's no red block games here for my goalkeepers in the first four match days. That's the point I really wanted to hit home. So I feel that this combination of goalkeepers, there is that rotation element there, and that I wouldn't need to do like a panic goalkeeping transfer. So I'm fairly content with those goalkeepers, 4.5 million each. I ask you to look for a better 4.5 goalkeeping combination for the first four match days in UCL Fantasy without a red block game. I don't think you'll find one. So there we go. I'm going to now shift again to another Salzburg player and further up the pitch. So let's just remove the position, goalkeepers, sort it by percentage. I think his ownership might be fairly high as well if I just select it here. Oh, let's just get the ownership up at 0%. So the other player I had in mind was Gluck. There we go, £6 million. Scored 28 points last season. Now with Gluck in particular, I'm surprised his ownership is that low. But again, another differential, but he's already scored 3 goals this season, 9 goals the season before for Salzburg, regular starter. So I think that he offers exceptional value. So yeah, in he comes for me in this draft. So there we go. As you can see right now, I've got 7 players to go with 43 million pounds remaining, and yeah, I've already filled a lot of the big hitting slots, as it were, up top. So again, I've got a healthy amount to really cover here with this actual team. So the other player, I'm going to go to Salzburg once again, get my screen up, and it's Dedic. Now, Dedic has been at Salzburg for 3 seasons now, so this is season number 3. Scored 8 goals in 69 games in the previous 2 seasons. Already racked up 9 games this season without a goal. And again, wanted to just bring up Salzburg's FDR once again from fantasyfootballpundit.com. Sparta Prague, Brest, Dynamo Zagreb, Feyenoord. So from my perspective, again, look, I get it with the team as I've got it. I've got Blaswich as well and Gluck, but with Dedic in particular, just gonna, if I can just sort this by defense specifically. There we go. He's £4.5 million. Again, 0 ownership, and just going to get him in. So I'm actually surprised with the way the FDR has been factored in so far. Like, was it Gatti, Dedic, Gregorio, Blaswich? I think okay, Lamine Yamal, his ownership is fairly high, but the bulk of these backline players have pretty much 0% ownership. So I think there's quite a few hidden gems here potentially. And yeah, Gyökeres, 5%. I've got no doubt his ownership is going to skyrocket between now and also match day 1, as I've mentioned. So the next player that I'm going to come on to, so I've got Dedic there as well. So I've got a triple up of Salzburg. I'm going to go back to Dortmund actually, because with Dortmund, I actually talked them up even before I really factored in the FPI. In fact, if I apply the filters, he might even come up. If I just get rid of Salzburg here, apply the filters, I'm going to get another Dortmund player. So he should come up fairly high. There he is, Schlotterbeck, £5 million. I think that's a fairly reasonable price for a player who's reached the final last season. And also just bringing up the FDR in particular for Dortmund, got Club Bruges, Celtic, and Sturm Graz in the opening 4 matches. Zagreb as well, if we do 4 and 5. So I think that's a fairly reasonable run there. So yeah, no complaints with him in particular. And I'm going to stick with Dortmund as well, because there's another Dortmund player that did catch my eye last season. So let me just go to midfielders. I think his ownership might be like fairly reasonable, not super high, but fairly reasonable because of how he did last season. Let's just go all the way down. Okay, maybe not. So go to clubs, go all the way to Dortmund. Where are they? There we go. And there he is. Oh, he's only less than 5% owned. So Julian Brandt scored 49 points last season, £7.5 million. And what really I find of interest is that 10 goals in 47 last season, 10 in 42 the season before, 9 in 40 the season before that. You kind of know what you're expecting from him. Hopefully a goal every 4 games. He's known to be a capable assister as well. So yeah, I'm fairly content with having Julian Brandt as another midfield option here for me. So with Dortmund, I've got the double up here. And seeing as I'm on midfielders, I might as well just complete the midfield combination as well. And of course, I've got Mbappe. I've talked about not wanting to literally read into the FDR as it's the be all or end all, but it's been a massive reference point for me in this draft. Someone who was sensational last season and obviously has just been brilliant since their breakthrough season. It's Jude Bellingham. Now, at the time of recording, he is injured, didn't play international football. I think it would be crazy not to have him if he is fully fit ahead of match day 1. And even if, let's just say, for match day 1, that he isn't available, I'm happy to take the risk and basically then hope that he is available from match day 2, because just bringing up the FDR once again, Real Madrid have Stuttgart, Lille, Dortmund, AC Milan, then it gets a bit trickier, Liverpool as well. But again, fixture proof, I'm not bothered with it, those fixtures for Real Madrid. So yeah, no nonsense pick, and in he comes. So let's just go back to my draft. So that's where we're at. £17 million. And I've got 3 more berths to fill here. Now, I did talk about Bayern Munich cover, and I really feel that I don't have Harry Kane, and he will be scoring goals, but I have to really just ultimately balance out the squad as well at the same time. But I need to get Bayern Munich cover, and let me just remove forwards, put midfield filter on here. And with Bayern Munich in particular, just get this here, sort it by percentage, because I think his ownership isn't super high right now. You got Musiala 16%, Kimmich 13%. The player I have in mind is Serge Gnabry, 2% owned, 7.5 million. And the reason why I've got Serge in mind in particular, just going to bring up his record here, that with Bayern Munich, from the 1920 season, scoring goals for fun, regular starter, and then game developed. And obviously last season in particular, his ratings dropped slightly as well and didn't play a lot of games. Again, I'm not here knowing why he didn't play as many games. I'm assuming it was an injury, but clearly he's been a regular starter from the start of August this year. 2 Bundesliga games, played in the cup game for Bayern Munich as well. So I'm assuming he will be a regular starter for Bayern Munich. Last season, despite only getting 20 games, still scored 5 goals. So somewhat of a differential. I think because his points are also weren't as great last season, that his ownership has also taken somewhat of a hit as well. I think Serge is somewhat of a cheat code as well, potentially, albeit Gyökeres, I think more so. So wanted Bayern Munich cover, and I think he is the go-to player in this balanced team and balanced midfield for now. So that leaves me with 2 spots to fill, got £9.5 million in the bank, and with this, again, wanted to factor in the FDR to some extent as well. And if I just go back to the FDR super quickly for the 4-match one, Aston Villa had Young Boys away, Bayern Munich at home tricky, got Bologna and Club Bruges. I'd say 3 of those 4 games look fairly reasonable for them. So I definitely wanted some sort of Aston Villa cover. And just go back here with Aston Villa in particular. If I just select them, yeah, it would have been nice getting Ollie Watkins if he hit the ground running. scoring goals for fun. That's not been the case. Just curious to see. Let me just, not midfield, beg your pardon, defender. There we go. Just curious to see what the ownership levels are. And Maatsen was in one of my earlier drafts, 5% owned, but then Luca Dean's been getting the starts. Maatsen's been a sub in the Premier League so far. But yeah, 5 million for an Aston Villa defender of the Champions League might be a bit of a push, but you know what? With Ezri Konsa, X-Min shouldn't be an issue, and I've got him in for those fixtures essentially. That leaves me with £4.5 million to complete this updated draft. And with this, I'm going to go, just out of interest, unselect Aston Villa, stick it on defenders, because I want to see if the player that I have in mind, who was in one of my previous drafts as well, has a high ownership. So at £4.5 million, you got Beraldo of PSG, who has been getting regular starts, but I've been told could be a rotation issue in the future. You got Maatsen, you got Rico Lewis, Acerbi, Araujo. Literally all of my draft from last time out are up here, but the ownership levels are still relatively low. Hanko, Zinchenko, Diet, yeah, I mean, it's not looking great. But the one player who I'm willing to stick with from those that I had is Kubasi of Barcelona. And with Kubasi in particular, he's been getting regular starts for Barcelona as of now. I think cheap level entry into their defence. And just as a quick reminder of the 4-match FDR, Barcelona of Monaco, Young Boys, Bayern Munich, Red Star, Brest. Obviously, 4 out of 5 of those matches seem very reasonable. So I think he is a no-nonsense pick for my draft. So in he comes. And as we can see there, I have now maxed out my funds for this UCL draft fantasy update. And literally, I got over that mental block of wanting to have those 3 premium forwards. And by dropping 4 million, Kane out, Gyökeres essentially in, it's allowed me to spread the funds for a very balanced team. And I feel that with this team, it is my draft update. Will it be my final draft? It may not be, but I'll tell you what, I kind of feel that I'm in that ballpark whereby it's very near to my final draft now in terms of how I've spread the funds. SWOT analysis of this, I think the strength clearly lies in the balance of the squad. Got a lot of the big hitters as well. Weakness, if I'm being honest, I'm relying on quite a few teams or players who, albeit their FDR is good in the short term, they haven't got the odds of advancing into the latter stages of the Champions League. So quite a few unknown quantities as well. The opportunities, without a doubt, here for me is I've got so many differentials at the time of recording, from Gatti to Dedic to Brandt to the goalkeeping combo. And at the same time, I've got the premium highly owned players as well. So I think that works fairly in my favour as well. In terms of threats, you know what I'm up against. I haven't got Harry Kane, one of the big hitters in UCL Fantasy, especially last season as well. So if he does really well and my alternative player in Gyökeres and the others don't do as well, then clearly I'll be on course for a red arrow. But I feel, you know what, I've got enough balance here that I've checked a lot of the boxes that this should potentially work. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Please tell me that this is a massive upgrade on the draft that I had last time and my first attempt as well. I feel that I factored in the FTR appropriately, especially for the first 4 match days, and that with this, it should give me a good platform to then ultimately work on my final draft. As always, if you're able to like, share, and subscribe, that will be greatly appreciated. Looking forward to your feedback. Take care and all the best.